Hi everyone, welcome back to Learn With Me. I'm Deborah Hanson, and today we're going to look at AP Psychology Key Terms 3.8 for Operant Conditioning. So I've already done the full video on the CED and the essential knowledge. That's on a separate video, so if you want to watch that, that's going to be available. And for now, I'm just going to go through the definitions and examples for each of the key terms. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed to my channel. I'm loving the numbers going up. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, we look at the CED question. We're not going to go into the essential knowledge of it, but we want to know why these key terms are important and what they're based on. So the CED question was, explain how operant conditioning applies to behavior and mental processes. So these are the key terms that apply to that question. Okay, so if you want more details about that, you got to go to the other video, or you can also get my full slideshow with all the information that you need, and I'll have the link below for that as well. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with operant conditioning. The definition is a type of learning where behavior is influenced by the consequences that follow it. For example, reinforcement or punishment. Example, a child learns to clean their room to receive praise, reinforcement. Law of effect. Thorndike's principles say that behaviors followed by favorable consequences are more likely to occur, while behaviors followed by unfavorable consequences are less likely to occur. Pretty logical. A dog that receives a treat for sitting is more likely to repeat the behavior. Reinforcement. Any event that strengthens or increases the likelihood of a behavior. For example, there are two. Positive reinforcement, adding a desirable stimulus to increase a behavior, for example, giving a treat for good behavior. Or negative reinforcement, removing an unpleasant stimulus to increase a behavior, so taking away chores for doing homework. Punishment, any event that decreases the likelihood of a behavior. So positive punishment, adding an unpleasant stimulus to reduce a behavior, for example, scolding a child for misbehaving, or negative punishment, removing a desirable stimulus to reduce a behavior, taking away a phone for bad grades. Primary reinforcer, a naturally reinforcing stimulus that satisfies a biological need, for example, food or water. For example, giving a dog food as a reward for good behavior. Secondary conditioned reinforcer, a learned reinforcer that gains its power through association with a primary enforcer, money, praise, those kinds of things, using tokens in a classroom that can be exchanged for rewards. I used to do this when I was teaching in elementary school. Okay. Shaping, gradually guiding behavior towards the desired behavior by reinforcing successive approximations. For example, training a rat to press a lever by rewarding it for moving closer to the lever step by step. Reinforcement schedules, rules that determine how often a behavior is reinforced. For example, continuous reinforcement is reinforcing the behavior every time it occurs, giving a treat every time your dog sits. Partial reinforcement is reinforcing behavior only some of the time. For example, giving a treat after every third time the dog sits. Fixed ratio schedule, a reinforcement schedule where reinforcement is provided after a set number of responses. A worker receives a bonus for selling every time the person sells 10 products. That would be a fixed ratio schedule. Variable ratio schedule, a reinforcement schedule where reinforcement is provided after an unpredictable number of responses. So for example, if you're playing a slot machine, the payout after, we don't know how many times you're going to have to pull the lever for it to give you the payout. So the example, a slot machine pays out after an unpredictable number of lever pulls. Fixed interval schedule. A reinforcement schedule where reinforcement is provided after a fixed amount of time has passed. A student receives praise every 30 minutes for working on their homework. Variable interval schedule. A reinforcement schedule where reinforcement is provided after varying amounts of time. So a boss checks in on employees at unpredictable times so that they stay focused. Teacher would do the same, right? Instinctive drift, the tendency for an animal to revert to instinctive behaviors even after being conditioned. A raccoon trained to place coins in a piggy bank may start rubbing the coins together instead of depositing them, reverting to the food washing behavior. Superstitious behavior, behavior that occurs when reinforcement is delivered at random, leading the individual to associate a behavior with reinforcement, even if it's unrelated. So a person believing that wearing a lucky shirt leads to a good test score. just because they wore the shirt the first time and they got an A, and then they figure they have to wear it every time they take the test. Learned helplessness, a condition in which an individual learns that they have no control over aversion stimuli and stops trying to change their situation. A dog that repeatedly experiences shocks without being able to escape eventually stops trying to avoid the shock, even when escape is possible. Behavioral modification, the use of operant conditioning techniques to change behavior, using positive reinforcement to increase desirable behaviors and punishment to decrease undesirable behaviors in children. Okay, let's have a look through the list. Make sure you have your cards, make sure you know what they are. You can pause and you can try and see if you remember what the word means and maybe an example, whatever you want to do, or just make sure you have them all. Operant conditioning, law of effect, reinforcement, punishment, primary reinforcer, secondary conditioned reinforcer, shaping, reinforcement schedules, fixed ratio schedule, variable ratio schedule, fixed interval schedule, variable interval schedule, instinctive drift, superstitious behavior, learned helplessness, behavioral modification. And that is the key terms for 3.8 operant conditioning. Hope you found those helpful. If you did, leave me a message in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you find the content helpful. I'm happy to keep going. And if you have any ideas on making different videos that will help you along the way, please let me know. I'm always happy to make new videos. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening. See you next time.